You're watching MMA Oddsbreaker. I'm Frank Trigg. Today we get to talk with Tim Boetsch, getting ready to fight CB Dollaway in UFC 166. Just coming up in a little under a week. What's your last week of training camp like? I'm guessing you leave on Tuesday like everybody else to head down to Houston?
Yeah, we're heading down Tuesday morning, and weight's under control this time around. So the last week going into this fight is pretty laid back. Just a matter of staying sharp, keeping the technique tightened up and making sure the game plan is fresh in my mind. And then, just make sure we get on weight on Friday and ready to fight for Saturday.
Now you say the weight's under control this time. What other times has it been not under so good a control?
The past couple have actually been pretty rough. Last fight with Munoz, I was running around in the parking lot and pummeling drills and getting the last pound off moments before stepping on the scale. So that was actually the worst one I've had to date as far as cutting it close. It's usually a struggle just getting down to weight, and that's just part of it. But this time I'm ahead of schedule. I brought my body weight down a little bit because of how much I suffered the last time. So hopefully I won't make that mistake again.
How was the weight cut against Costas Philippou? Was it just as hard as the one against Munoz?
No, it was close. I was on weight when I got to the weigh-in, so it was a little bit better than the last time. But as far as overall how the weight cut went, it was down to the wire. I was making the weight as they were calling us. It's time to get to weigh-in. So, but that's the thing. The UFC makes us hang out for 2 hours before we actually step on the scale. So there's that 2 hour gap in there that is sort of wasted time that are just laying around suffering.
What was the weight cut like when you beat up Yushin Okami?
Surprisingly, that weight cut went a lot better than I expected. I thought jet lag was going to be an issue. Flying over there, some guys retain a lot of water, but that one surprisingly was one of my better weight cuts actually. But as far as recovery goes, I'm able to recover even on those fights that the weight cut kind of stunk and I suffered through it. I still recover and do feel just about 100% come fight night. So that's usually not an issue for me.
The reason why I'm asking, because I'm looking at your record: Kendall Groves, Nick Ring, Yushin Okami, Hector Lombard. Those wins in a row put you on everybody's map. Everybody's paying attention to Tim Boetsch. Now is the guy. You basically were brought in against Yushin to be fodder, and you beat him up, like you destroyed him. And it wasn't like, oh, I hit him one punch, knocked him out in the first round, not really sure what's going on. You TKO'd him in the third round after beating him up for 2 rounds. So it was a dominating performance. Then they're like, let's bring Hector Lombard in and see what Tim would do against Hector Lombard, and you beat him up too. It's a split decision, but you take a guy that everyone's scared of to practice with down in American Top Team. Everybody's worried about him hurting them when they're just practice partners. Nobody really wants to get in a battle shape with him, and you prove, hey, anybody can fight him. Look what I did. You beat him up. Then those weight cuts were all easy. Well, easier. No weight cut is ever easy. Then the two that you kind of struggled through are the 2 losses you had with Philippou and Munoz. Did the weight cut actually factor into it a little bit, or was it just those nights you just weren't ready and those guys just happened to be better?
No, honestly, I think the weight cut was harder just because some things that happened in camp, and that's a lot of people don't realize. This is the first fight that I'm actually really excited about this year. The past couple of the camps have not gone well. There's some health issues involved. I don't want to make excuses for those 2 fights. Obviously, those guys got the W's on fight night, and hats off to them. They're great fighters. They do well. But I know that I was not 100% in training camp, in the weight cut, or in the fight in those fights. In hindsight, maybe I should have, gone the route of talking about, backing out of those fights. But that's not my style. Once I agree to a fight, it's going to take a severe injury for me to pull out. One, because, I like to show up to the fights that I'm under agreement with contractually. And I've got bills to pay. I'm not one of these guys who can afford to take a big chunk of time off. And, I've got mortgages and 3 kids and a wife, and, they all need to be taken care of.
Were there, you said there were health issues in your training camps. Were there ever any personnel issues, like coaches weren't getting along with each other, or one guy, one of your training partners wasn't playing the right game? Was there any of that stuff going on in training camp, or was it mainly just health issue problems with some of these other training camps?
No, the personnel. We've got a solid camp out here at AMC. Matt Hume, Brad Kurtzen, and all the guys at the gym here. That's one thing I can count on at this gym is I know I'm going to get the training I need. So it really boils down to if I'm healthy and if everything health-wise is spot on. I know the training was there, and the game plan certainly is there. Matt's the master of coming up with game plans. Yeah. So really, there's no one else to blame other than myself for those last two fights.
Well, let's break down CB Dollaway, your next opponent. What do you think? He's watching tape on you. He knows you train with Matt Hume. What do you think he's going to adjust in his style to come in and fight you on occasion? How do you see him as a competitor?
Well, he's been around the UFC a while, so he's a veteran of the UFC, so he's going to be very confident in there. He's not one of these new guys that comes in and gets rattled by the big show and the lights and all those things that go on. And you talked about him studying video. Obviously he's watched my most recent fights, those two losses where pretty much I lost both those fights on the ground. So I got to believe that he wants to put me on my back and pound me out, or try to sneak in one of his submissions that he's used in the past. But he's really going to encounter a different person than the guy that was in both my last two fights. So he can watch all the film he wants. He's in for a rude awakening. But I expect it to be a tough fight. He's been a wrestler for a very long time. And whenever you encounter a high-level wrestler in the octagon, you're going to run into a tough dude who's going to be well-conditioned and ready to brawl. So that's what I'm expecting coming into this fight.
From a cardio workout standpoint, did Matt do anything differently during this camp to get you more prepared for that grinding style of a wrestler coming at you?
No, Matt, we've kind of stuck to the same game plan we have in the past as far as conditioning goes because like I said, when I'm healthy and I'm able to do the conditioning and the workouts that Matt has planned for us, I perform very well. And you talked about coming back and getting the TKO over Yushin in the third round. And when I beat Nick Ring in Colorado at altitude, I felt great that whole fight, was able to push the pace the whole time. So when I'm healthy, conditioning is not a factor. I've got the workouts and the training out here to push through 3 hard rounds for sure.
Tim, thanks for taking some time with us here on MMA Oddsbreaker. Good luck against CB Dollaway, and we'll definitely be talking to you before your next fight.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Take care.